So if I was a fan of Stevenage, I would be absolutely fuming. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of a 12-man podcast. I'm your host, Danny Volkert, and today we're going to be discussing the promotion and relegation candidates from the Premier League, the Championship, League One and League Two. So we know that League One and League Two, the season's already ended, but we're going to just take a look back and see who's coming up and who's going down in each of those leagues. So firstly, we're going to turn our attention to League Two. Now, with everything going on with COVID over the last 4 months, it's sort of left things in quite a messy situation in regards to who's going to be where next season. So League Two's probably the league that's in the most turmoil. So we already know that Swindon, Crewe and Plymouth have been promoted to play in League One next season. Northampton Town have joined them recently by beating Exeter in the playoff final at Wembley. So that's a simple part of it done. Now, if we take a look at the other end of the table, so from the games that got played, combined with the points per game calculations, Stevenage finished bottom of the league. So this league was confirmed to be over on June the 9th, but it couldn't be calculated for a further 3 weeks because Macclesfield, who finished second from bottom, they were under investigation over breaches of regulations. So Macclesfield hadn't been paying players' wages and they were awaiting the result of an investigation. If those results came back and the point deductions were 3 points or more, then Macclesfield would have gone down instead of Stevenage. So bear in mind that Macclesfield, they'd already had a 10-point deduction earlier on in the season for the same thing, which Macclesfield then went to appeal those deductions, and the deductions were then lowered to 7 points. So Macclesfield already had 7 points knocked off throughout that season. So for me, if I was a Stevenage fan, I'd feel hard done by. And let me tell you why. Macclesfield, it came back, they would be deducted 2 points and they'd receive a £20,000 fine. So that meant that Stevenage were then relegated into the National League. So they'll be playing in the National League next year. But what gets me, Macclesfield will also start the 2021 season with a -4 point deduction, which has been agreed upon, obviously, the investigation. Again, so if I was a fan of Stevenage, I would be absolutely fuming at those results coming back. Ultimately, though, performances on the pitch for Stevenage is what has got them into this position. So it's very complicated in regards to the Stevenage-Macclesfield situation. Stevenage will be going down, Macclesfield will stay up and start next season in League Two with a -4 point deduction. Let's move over now into League One. Talking of point deductions, this can only bring us on to Bolton. So Bolton started the season with -12 points. It's a tough situation for Bolton to start the season in. It's not easy for anybody to start -12 points. Again, financial situations off the pitch put them in this situation, and unfortunately they just couldn't do enough to stay in the division. So it's been a hell of a fall from grace for Bolton, who, do you know what I mean, not so long ago they were playing European football under Sam Allardyce. They had players such as JJ Kocher, Fernando Hierro, Ivan Campo. There was a well-established team. They're now going to be playing their football in League Two next season, and how that impacts Bolton financially, I think it's been clear for everybody to see over the years. Obviously, they started the beginning of the season, they had to put the young team out, they had to put a lot of youth players out because they just didn't have any players at the club. And as hard as youth players tried, they weren't picking up many points. Things changed, he managed to get a few signings in, and they've managed to pick some more points up, but it was just too little too late for Bolton in regards to staying in the division. And I think with everything that's gone on this year in regards to COVID and 3, 4, 5 months not being able to play football, not having fans in the stadiums, I can only imagine that there's going to be a lot more point deductions going forward, and especially in the lower leagues. I mean, Wigan are currently going through a similar thing, and they could be looking at relegation despite getting the results on the pitch to stay up. I think something needs to be done to help out these teams, the Macclesfields and Boltons. You look at what happened to Bury the other season. I just think something needs to be done to help these teams, or we're going to be looking at a lot more teams who are joining the likes of Bury. And it just creates an even bigger gap between the leagues, so from Premiership to Championship, and then from Championship to League One. And I think you're going to find these teams getting stuck down in the lower leagues. I think we need more consistency and less of a gap in quality in financial packages between these four leagues. So joining Bolton in League Two next year, they're going to be joined by Southend, deservedly so. They've not been good this season. Sol Campbell's not been able to keep them up. I know they've obviously parted ways with Sol Campbell now. And perhaps the not so deserving Tranmere. So Tranmere were 3 points behind AFC Wimbledon, and it's a tough one really, because Tranmere had a game in hand on AFC Wimbledon, which if Tranmere had won that game in hand, it could have changed the outlook of the relegation places. Do you know what I mean? They would have been, if they'd have won that game in hand, they'd have been equal on points with AFC Wimbledon. It would have then gone down to the points per game ratio, which, granted, majority of the teams in League One and League Two voted for if they wanted to end the season early and have the points per game calculations taken into place. And it didn't work out for Tranmere. Looking at where we are now in regards to football, it's probably a decision that a few of those teams are going to be regretting. Ultimately though, like Stevenage, Tranmere, they just couldn't find enough to keep themselves in the league. They left it a little bit too late to start hitting some form, and ultimately that's the reason they've gone down. They've got themselves into that situation, and I don't think you can blame what's happened with COVID for your relegation struggles. If we take a look at the top end of the table now, so Coventry and Rotherham, we know that they have won promotion to the Championship, and they're going to be joined by either Wycombe or Oxford. So these two teams, Wycombe and Oxford, they've been pretty even all year. They'll go head-to-head at Wembley on Monday. As impressive as Wycombe were in the semi-final of the playoffs, I do fancy Oxford to just be too strong on the day, ultimately securing promotion to the Championship. Oxford, a well-run club. Carl Robinson's in charge down there now. Did a good job at MK Dons, and I just think Oxford will be too strong for that Wycombe team. So we've looked at League One, we've looked at League Two, we've covered who's been promoted, who's been relegated, who we think's going to win that playoff final on Sunday. And this takes us to the Championship. So for me, the Championship, it's the most exciting league to conclude. Taking a look at the bottom of the league, so there's 6 points which separates bottom of the league and all the way up to 18th spot. So the teams currently occupying these spots are Luton, Barnsley, Middlesbrough, Hull, Charlton, Stoke and Huddersfield. Now, if you asked me 3 weeks ago, I think Luton looked dead and buried. But they seem to have, after the break, they seem to have hit a bit of form at the right time, and they've given themselves a chance. I think Middlesbrough, they've recently appointed the experienced Neil Warnock to obviously try and keep them in the league, which for me, I think that's going to be enough to do that. As long as he can get that Middlesbrough team organised and playing as a team quite sharpish, he'll need to do it sort of straight away because they've not got many games left. But if he does that, I think they'll be fine. I also think Hull are going to get enough points on the board to keep themselves up. So by process of elimination, the teams looking at relegation, in my opinion, I think Barnsley are going to be going down. Charlton, I believe, will go down. Stoke, I think, are going to go down. I just don't think we're picking up enough points. And unfortunately, I know we mentioned them earlier, Luton have probably left it a little bit too late. So I think Luton will go down. I don't think Luton are going to finish bottom of the league. I think they're going to overtake Barnsley. I think Barnsley will probably finish bottom of the league. But the way Luton are playing, it is a little bit too late and they needed to pick more points up throughout the season. I do think Luton will be going down as well. So bear in mind those predictions. We touched on Wigan earlier. Those predictions don't take into account the Wigan situation. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to play out. I'm hearing rumours that if Wigan get relegated, then the deduction of points that they possibly will get is going to go on to next season. I'm also hearing if they stay up, it goes on to this season's tally. Now, unless Wigan win all of the remaining games, so the rumours I've heard is that Wigan are going to have a 12-point deduction, same as Bolton. If they get relegated, they'll start in League One next season with 12 points. But if they stay up, the 12 points are going to go on to this season. I can't really understand it. I'd have thought there's a rule in place that says, look, you get your 12-point deduction, and there's something there that says it's going to be this season or it's going to be next season. I don't see how the rules can change depending on Wigan's situation. But if they do win all the remaining games, and assuming these rumours are true, then Wigan might be taking a spot in that relegation, in those relegation places, which again, for me, it's absolutely ridiculous that these plans aren't made. Do you know what I mean? Wigan should know exactly where they stand. If we're having a 12-point deduction this season, then let Wigan know that it's a 12-point deduction this season. For me, if it's the same situation as what Bolton went through, Bolton had the 12-point deduction at the start of this season. For me, Wigan, they've done enough on the pitch. They've done enough on the pitch to stay afloat, to stay in the Championship. So if we've breached regulations, give them a fine. Give them that fine next season so they know where they stand and what they have to do to get out of that position. So there we go. So that's the Championship. We've ran through the Championship relegation places. So we're moving up the table now, and there's still a lot to play for. So I think Leeds and West Brom will secure the automatic spots in with promotion into the Premier League. I think if both of them win the games in hand, West Brom will be 5 points clear of third place, and Leeds will be 6 points clear. And only 1 point separates Leeds and West Brom. And I've just got a feeling that West Brom, they're going to pip them to top spot. I think Leeds, the break might have done Leeds well. I think the way Bielsa plays, fitness is an issue, and do you know what I mean? If you've not been playing for 3 or 4 months, I think West Brom are going to have the edge in getting to that top spot. Fulham, Brentford, and in my opinion, I imagine Forest are now too far clear of 7th place, and so I think they're going to be in the playoffs. And looking at the league, I think they're going to be joined by either Cardiff, Derby, Swansea, or Blackburn. Now, if Cardiff would have beaten Blackburn on Tuesday night, that would have left Blackburn out of it. But, I mean, that's typical Blackburn, really. They get beat by Barnsley, they then go on and beat Cardiff away from home. They've got West Brom next at the weekend. I think if Blackburn win that, it will give them a huge boost. If they don't take all 3 points in that game, then I think Blackburn are out of it also. For me, my prediction for who's going to finish in that 6th spot is Derby. So Derby are another team. They're hitting form at the right time. I think Philip Cocu, it's took a while for Philip Cocu to get adjusted to the Championship and to get his style of football being played. I think the addition of Wayne Rooney in January has obviously helped them do that. And they're starting to steamroll teams now. They're picking up these wins where 6 months ago you wouldn't have expected them to get these wins. So that being said, from Brentford, Fulham, Forest and Derby, I think Fulham are probably the most equipped to get promotion. They've got the better players, they've got the experience. They came down from the Premier League last year. So I think we're more equipped for a run in the Premier League. But again, I've just got a feeling that Brentford are going to be the ones joining Leeds and West Brom. They've got real quality in Ollie Watkins and Said Benrahma, and I just think it's their time to shine. So I think Brentford are going to join Leeds and West Brom in the Premier League next season. And finally, this brings us on to the Premier League. So Norwich are gone. I think they may have had a chance if they'd have gotten a result against Watford. I think if they'd have beaten Watford on Tuesday, they might have had a chance of staying up. The bottom of the table would have looked a lot closer than what it does currently. Obviously, we got beat off Watford. I think that's Norwich done now. I think we're down. There's no way back for them. Joining Norwich, and I mean this is a tough one to call. So 4 points separate Bournemouth, Villa, Watford, and West Ham. I think you'd probably say at the beginning of the season, Bournemouth, Watford, and West Ham shouldn't be in this position. You wouldn't expect them to be in this position come this point of the season. So it's not been a good season for any of those three teams. I think Aston Villa are going to go down. They've got Jack Grealish, but they haven't really got anything else. So there's too much reliance placed on Grealish to get the ball and make something happen. The problem I have with Villa's biggest problem is they can't defend. Villa are conceding 1 or 2 goals a game, which to pick up the 3 points, Villa need to score 2 or 3 goals. And I've not seen the statistics. I don't know how many times Villa have done that this season, but I don't think it's going to be many because who's going to score the goals for him? I know Wesley was a £20 million signing beginning of the season. He's out injured. They brought Samatta in as a sort of an emergency player. Now I see him playing with Keenan Davison. There's just no firepower there. There's no goals there. John McGinn, he'll be welcome back, and he's a top player. But again, I don't see where the goals are going to come from for Aston Villa. And like I say, defensively, they're conceding too many. So I think Norwich and Villa are going to be the 2 teams that are certainly going down. And I hate to say it, but I think Bournemouth as well. I don't know what's happened at Bournemouth this year. They've got the quality. We've got like Callum Wilson, Harry Wilson, Josh King, David Brooks, Jefferson Lerma, Nathan Ake. They just don't seem to be able to get it together. And I don't know what it is. Maybe there's a complacency within the squad. I mean, if you're Callum Wilson, your direct competition for that striker spot is Dominic Solanke, who scored nothing. He's scored no goals for him yet. And maybe you get complacent knowing that, well, I'm going to be in that team anyway, regardless. Same with Nathan Ake, Josh King. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a complacency issue. Maybe Eddie Howe's, he's taken them as far as he can. I don't know. I think, look, for the last 4 or 5 seasons, Bournemouth have been an established team in the Premier League. And I remember when Wigan went down, it was a similar situation where, and the couple of seasons before, they'd managed to scrape staying in the Premier League, but they got themselves to an established mid-table team, did Wigan, and then one season comes where nothing works for them, and you can't just rely on that mid-table security. I think you've got to look at improving year after year to try and, you've got to better what other teams are doing. I mean, I don't know what business Eddie Howe's done in the transfer market this year. Looking at his team, there's no new signings there. I know he's brought Aaron Ramsdale in the goals. In my opinion, he's not good enough. They played Man United last week. I think the first goal from Mason Greenwood, he should have saved. It's gone straight over his hand. He's got his arm to it. He should have pushed that away. And I've not watched too much of Bournemouth, but if that's the standard of goalkeeping, he's always going to concede goals. And other than that, I just can't see where he's improved. It's if you take a look at the Bournemouth team now to what the Bournemouth team was 4 years ago, the majority of the team is exactly the same. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe I think Eddie Howe's showing too much loyalty to these players, and ultimately it's going to end in a relegation, in my opinion. So there we go. So there's my 3 predictions for relegation. I think we're looking at Norwich. I think we're looking at Villa and Bournemouth. So currently, what the current bottom 3 is at the minute. Watford got a massive result against Norwich. Nigel Pearson, I think since he's come in, look, the start that Watford had, Nigel Pearson has improved the team. He's picked up results where he's needed to, and I think he's got them playing a better brand of football. West Ham, the last couple of games I've seen West Ham play, West Ham seem to be scoring goals now. So they scored, they beat Chelsea. They scored 3 against Chelsea. They got 2 against Newcastle in the 2-2 draw, I think it was. very able to score goals, and if you can score goals, then that's half of a battle won. You're gonna have a better chance of staying in the Premier League. So that's the bottom three. So let's have a look at the top of the table now. Obviously, Liverpool have finished in first. I think it's clear to see that City are going to finish in second. I think Leicester are going to finish in third. And I think United might just pick that fourth spot. So Leicester seem to have turned a corner now. After the break, when everyone came back, Leicester just weren't quite at it, and that's given the other teams a chance to catch them. They've had a couple of good results. They scored a late goal on Tuesday night against Arsenal, Jamie Vardy, to pick up a point. And they have got a tough run in, but I do think Leicester have turned a corner. I think we're going to go on and cement that third place spot. We're going to take that from Chelsea, who currently hold it. And United look fantastic at the minute. It's a strong United side, an attacking United side. They look like a whole new team. Like I say, they've been phenomenal. I think the problem I've got with Chelsea, I like Frank Lampard. I think he's done a fantastic job this year. And in a way, I hope we get Champions League, because then his season has had probably the deserved result that they've got, if you get me. So they'll have ended up with Champions League. I think Frank Lampard's done a good job bringing in the youth team. Obviously, they've undergone a transfer in Boygo, but they concede. They look like they're conceding too many goals. They conceded 3 against West Ham. They conceded 2 against Crystal Palace. Yep, we got the 3-2 win against Crystal Palace. But I think if you're conceding that amount of goals, you're going to slip up somewhere along the way. You can't keep getting lucky and picking up the wins when you're conceding 2 or 3 goals a game. And I think ultimately that's what's going to, for me, have Chelsea finishing in 5th place. I think they'll finish ahead of Wolves in 6th place. I think Wolves are a fantastic team. Arsenal are going to take 7th again, like Leicester. They seem to have turned a corner. And I think Tottenham are going to pip Sheffield United to 8th place. I just think Mourinho's there. I've seen a couple of games where they've got the 1-0 wins, and it's typical Mourinho. They're not playing great, but he's picking up the results. So I think Tottenham are going to pick that 8th spot. I'm not sure if 9th will get Europe. I hope it does, because I think Sheffield United, the season they've had, deserve it. They've missed the fans post lockdown, and I think that's obviously that's influencing the results that they're having, because they haven't got the fans in the stadium. That's it, yeah. Hopefully Sheffield United can get into Europe. So those are my predictions. We're coming to the end of the podcast now, so let me know what you think about my predictions. If you're listening on YouTube, leave a comment below. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, just head over to my Twitter account, which is at 12th Podcast, and just let me know what you think over there. So unfortunately, as I said, that's the end of this episode. I hope you all are enjoying listening as much as I'm enjoying creating these episodes. I'll be back at the same time next week, but until then, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening.